Dear ladies and gentlemen, greeting from APO. This is live from the Secretary Office in Tokyo, Japan. I'm Tat Manabe from the Agricultural Division. Today, we would like to focus on farmers, who are the foundation of our stable food supply. Even under the current COVID-19 outbreak, farmers cannot just stay at home, but they need to go out and they are taking risk to produce foods for us every day. Also, they are facing multiple productivity challenges. Here I'm honored to welcome Dr. Sianghee Tan, Executive Director of CropLife Asia. CLA is an industry association with global companies developing and marketing innovative seeds and crop products, protection products. So Dr. Tan is in a good position to talk about Asian farmers, as the industry in meeting farmers every day and know their challenges and pain points. He will talk about the challenges that Asian farmers are facing and share his view on what leaders need to be aware of and how they can support farmers. Dr. Tan, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us from Singapore. How are you?
Good, good. Thank you, Ted, for your kind invitation and for APO to host me on this channel today.
Okay, thank you. So in advance to this session, I sent you a couple of key questions to you. So if you don't mind, I would like to go through questions one by one, and I'd like to hear your view with your slides. Would that be okay?
Yep, sure.
Okay, thank you. So firstly, to better understand the impact on farmers, I would like to start from the question around the entire food value chain. Maybe starting off with the consumer demand aspects. What are the changes seen, such as purchase behavior or under the COVID outbreak? Could you share your view, please?
Thank you, Ted, again for the kind invitation. So as you know, many of us are living in a lockdown environment within days and weeks. Singapore is one good example. We have extended our circuit breaker into June timeline, but nevertheless, we have seen a tremendous shift in how people buy things and how people are eating. This is an example of what we're seeing on an e-commerce basis, whereby, you know, from soups, from rice, packaged food, even milk have increased over 300% over the last couple of weeks. This is just to show to you how the consumer sentiment has changed and evolved. But nevertheless, this is not the end of it. There are more to come, which I'll talk a bit more later. Apart from that, because of the lockdown or a circuit breaker environment, you're seeing a massive shift in terms of lockdown, where retailers have been scrambling to meet demands at the supermarket level. The restaurant business has tumbled down almost to 0%. Singapore and many countries are still allowing food to go out. You can go and buy and order food, but nevertheless, the whole value chain and supply chain has now have to change, because you're no longer supplying to the restaurants as what you used to. So that has created a lot of disruption in the market today. So even as you look at rice for farmers on the ground, this is very, very early data that came out from USDA last couple of days, and been talking to you're looking at Vietnamese government not allowing export of rice, and by day after tomorrow, we'll know whether Vietnam will allow to re-export. But nevertheless, the on-the-ground sentiment by Thai rice exporter is labor shortage, working export facilities, migrant workers from neighboring countries are not allowed to move around because of the lockdown. So a lot of disruption on the ground. Not only us who can work from home and stay at home, but on the ground, there are a lot of things are happening that we all need to proactively work in advance and ensure things don't shut down and have negative impact, which I'll talk a bit more detail shortly.
Thank you very much. So those are the dynamic changes that probably farmer needs to be aware of for their production. So maybe the next question is about the food supply chain. So what are the impact and the challenge seen in the food supply chain? Could you share
Thank you.
some views?
So in the this came from a professor in US, as going to talk a bit more detail also, because of the circuit breaker and lockdown, this is not going to be ending anytime soon until a vaccine is found. I've been working on plant vaccine for the last 15 years before I joined private sector. We produce a plant vaccine that allows the current melon in Japan to continue to be in production. It was at the verge of collapse. So vaccine is very important, whether it's on a human basis or for plants. So it's crucial that we need to protect the society. So this circuit breaker will come in and out. So this is another graphic to show to you where we are. Most of the countries today, whether it's Singapore, Japan, and India, or we are seeing the first wave and the second wave of infection. So unless, like WHO said, unless we get to a vaccination process, government will, once infection goes up, we're going to trigger another lockdown, etc. So what we're trying to say is that we should learn from the current scenario how to protect our supply chain, our value chain, if the government continues to trigger on-off switch moving into the next 18 months or so, and how do we protect our supply chain, how do we protect farmers to ensure that they continue to produce food for us. Because of that start-stop, we are seeing wheat prices going up by 15% this March. We are also seeing rice from Thailand increase by 17%. So if this start-stop becomes more critical and farmers cannot work, the prices will jump up more significantly through the weeks and months ahead. So even with the initial phase, for example, Malaysia moving stocks into Singapore, we're seeing 30% decrease in volume coming into Singapore because everything has to be aligned. As I said, the FMB has shut down, so everybody is trying to realign their supply chain, getting into the market. And then because of the broken supply chain, farmers are now dumping a lot of stuff, therefore losing its ability to produce and have a good livelihood. This is a vicious cycle. The moment farmers no longer have the ability to sell any product, they are not able to earn money and be able to feed the family and buy inputs to continue to do production. So unless we intervene very collectively and cohesively in alignment, farmers will be the sufferer, number one. Number two, consumers will be seeing more expensive products in the market because we're getting less and less production in the marketplace. And e-commerce is one good thing. As an example, Lazada jumped in quickly, put things into connecting buyers and sellers together through e-commerce. And we're seeing this across the region in many countries, that e-commerce has shortened the whole communication between exporters, sellers, and also producers. So that's where I'm trying to get to. Everybody says it's very good that we need to protect the health of our society, but let's not, by locking down, create another food crisis that is already living in a very fragile agriculture ecosystem. We need to find all the way to maintain and to protect it and not create an intentional food crisis. I'll talk about food crisis in my next few slides. Manabe-san, over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Good view on the food supply chain process, and we can touch on that part later on. So now, this is about the farmers. So what now do you think is the impact and the key challenge that the farmers facing now, based on this kind of supply chain challenges and the demand changes? Could you share your view, please?
Thank you. So the first thing is that you need to ask, before I start on this slide, over the last 24 hours, two global authorities have said two things. One, infectious disease expert, we are only the second inning of the pandemic. So meaning there are more situation or more outbreak of this will come by, number one. David Beasley of WFP World Food Program, coronavirus pandemic will cause global famine of biblical proportion. These are the two warnings that came out in the last 24 hours on CNN. So it's a real call, it's a real threat. So this is an example of, there was a survey done in the US in the last couple of days, is asking farmers, are you very concerned with the impact of COVID on agriculture? If you look at it, 45% says very concerned, 34% say somewhat concerned. If you take these two pieces, it's exceeding 70%. The farmers, even developing countries, are concerned on their ability to produce effectively over the next planting season. Especially this is the time Northern Hemisphere needs to go into planting. From China, to US, every time this is now the plowing season and the seeding season moving forward. So they are concerned. That's the trend. Then let's look at the infection rate. I just want to give you a rough, this is the infected population based on the number tested over the last couple of weeks and etc. Just want to also show you the percentage of, like China, 25% of the population in agriculture. And then based on the testing results, these are the potential number of farmers that will be infected in the normal population wise. But this number may look small to compare to the population, but as this number increases in the coming days and coming months before vaccination, the farming community will equally be exposed and at risk. Just like if you look through the news, there are factories processing meat being closed down. If you get that type of environment, the supply chain and value chain will continue to be disrupted. So this is just a very high view and says potentially based on the number of people in agriculture percentage, these are the number of people infected. So just a heads up that's why it's very crucial for us to continue to be able to protect our farmers, protect the value chain as they go out and continue to provide food on our table on a daily basis and to protect our national GDP in agriculture. So again, referring to WFP's program director and says, at the end of today, 354 million people in Asia are already severe food insecure. Over 545 million people are moderate to severe food insecurity. Now, in totally, we are ready, well, not ready, not say ready, with this current COVID situation, globally, we are going to move from 800 million to 1 billion people going hungry every day. So that's a scary number, but this is only a part one of the conversation. The part two, if these smallholders that are within this community cannot produce, it will then have a domino effect into having affordable food for the community at large. So the plant science industry, together the multi-stakeholders that we work on, is to continue to provide food on the table. The current, there's a disruption, there's a bottleneck in terms of supply, in terms of demand. It's temporary, but we need to find as fast as possible to unbuckle and unlock the bottleneck, because food is essential, it is not luxury. And farmers will continue to produce quality food while maintaining safety as top priority. So we as industry together with stakeholders needs to find ways to protect farmers' safety as they go out and farm for us. Just like Madabe-san said in the opening, is how do we ensure that they continue to go out and work and produce food for us in a safe manner, and also the value chain. So how do we work with the value chain? In a sense that we need to look at productivity, how do we deploy technology into the hands of farmers by working with local producers, whether it's civil society, with NGOs, or with national food agriculture authorities, to provide the technology into the hands of farmers to ensure that they have the baseline of basic input so that they can produce. And because of today's disruption, the post-harvest is so critical. How do we help farmers to protect? How do we mobilize? I think few countries have started to mobilize their cold room along the value chain, so to help farmers to protect their goods while we rearrange the whole supply demand and be able to meet the export market. Just very good example. Today, Singapore and Perth has managed to reopen its airspace. There'll be a new shipment of agriculture produce coming from Australia to Singapore after the lockdown. It went through a negotiation phase, and today we have managed to open up the whole supply chain so that Australian produce can come to Singapore on a timely manner. So, but in between time, we need good post-harvest, and then goes out throughout whole of Asia. Going back, the fourth point is artificial constraint, domestic trade, borders, what you call closing of food chain, dislocation of value chain. So small farmers needs to be able to bring to market, whether it's the local wet market that are being closed, how do they sell their products? Because if you see across the region, where it's Malaysia and etc., when the wet market closes, where do the farmer bring their produce to? So that reorganization needs to happen quickly. How do we get to the market? Then lastly is addressing basic needs of the farmers. And this is where a lot of policies is being put in place by government to help smallholders, farmers, etc., which I'll talk a bit more in depth on this, where the government policy is being shaped and being implemented. So Ted, I'll stop here if you have any questions first.
Okay, thank you. You can proceed, but the key message here is that the farmers, the essential service, we really need to protect farmers. Whatever we can do, the government should take effort to protect them. Yep, so that's a very important element.
Correct. It's multi-stakeholder. Again, this is a small chart, a very simplified chart, because as I said, the agriculture is very complicated and delicate, and I don't expect this 30 minutes we'll be able to have all the answers and etc. But I just want to share with you the danger part of it and how we need to preserve and conserve the farming ability. So if farmers cannot earn money, they cannot buy the inputs, they cannot have feed the family collectively and then maintain his farm. At the end, if he goes out of business, the people on the right-hand side, all of here, will be seeing escalation in food prices before you get onto the table. So it's both partnership is very important. If the farmers don't succeed, we as a consumer and society at large will have far bigger challenge in terms of volume, in terms of price, in terms of affordability of food. So we don't want to end up in few countries that food prices goes up like 400% and 300%. I think across the region, the government has played a significant aggressive role to stabilize food prices while protecting farmers and also giving green lanes to food agriculture, productivity, supplying, etc. But there are other dislocation beyond the factory manufacturing, which I'll talk a bit later, because all of us are living in a just-in-time supply chain, and with one little disruption will create chaos across the value chain. So this is where I just want to heads up is that the ability of farmers is very, very important with correct technology, correct funding, correct ability to go to market in order to protect the society at large. So this is through a collaboration of our APSA Seed Association based in Thailand. So they essentially went out to do a survey to look at where are the dislocation or where the hiccups, are they seeing any challenges coming in during this period? And this hopefully will be packaged and be tabled into a report to be given to government as a heads up and says, as you lock down in the coming weeks and months or next phase, this thing should be well organized and aligned so that we have less disruption, so that the farmer can enjoy undisrupted inputs back end so that they can continue to produce in an effective and efficient way. So even you look at international shipment, purchase or delivery, labor for seeds of production, access to finance, we're looking at between a 40 to 20% response that negative effect. So this is already heads up to everyone that you're seeing that disruption already happening during these early days of March and April. Then on this left-hand side, we'll tell you, look at preparation of seed for export, acquiring permit, and import permit. This is crucial because, as you know, as government lockdown, the office may not be functional. A lot of certificates cannot be issued on time. This will cause disruption in both import and export situation. And we're seeing the situation ranging from 0 to 40% of different intensity in terms of impact on business. Then this is an FIA survey also, they're looking at disruption, whether do you see disruption in raw material ingredients, do you see labor restriction impacting production? This is very severe in many countries because even you look at Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia border within Laos, once the border shuts, the daily migrants of workers will have a difficulty in moving out into helping production, helping to plant. This is what we're seeing across all countries, even from the developed countries, even in Europe, we're seeing a challenge in securing labor for planting and harvest also. So it's a global problem. Then we also look at trade restriction impacting both internationally and nationally. We are also seeing that happen. So I think the government is trying very hard to try to resolve this, but on the ground in the last couple of weeks, we're seeing this type of situation. So with that, going back to the call is, how do we strengthen the smallholder supply chain? I think for the food chain, including the plant science industry, we are getting a lot of exemptions from the government. You know, you have a green pass, you can move along, and etc. So here's what I'm going to explain to you. For example, when we harvest a box of fruits for us to pack and move, so the fruits the farmers can go and harvest, can put in a box, but the manufacturer of the box are not calculated in the essential business. So the essential business cannot manufacture boxes for us to put the fruits in the box. So you see the phase number one dislocation. Then if the factory can start to produce, the road system says you're not essential service. You cannot transport your boxes to the factory or to the farm. So it's this type of small dislocation, because all of us work on JRS system. So everybody is producing a component, but they say, oh, food and agriculture can move. But they forgot that in order for the agriculture to move, they need packaging, they need boxes, they need cold chain. So that's where hopefully through this system, we can again strengthen the smallholder ability to do post-harvest from the packaging, etc., to ensure that they value capture the whole value, able to ship their product out into the market. Then with the airline shutting down, the products cannot move to other countries. So everybody has to realign where their buyers are, where they can sell. So the world is in, I wouldn't say panic mode, everybody is readjusting what is the norm in terms of how do I supply. So at the end of the day, we are at a neutral to positive manner, but nevertheless, there's still a learning, because the smallholder, Asia is very, very fragmented in terms of farmers, 100 million farmers. How do you organize those? We are not talking like Australia or US, but within Asia itself, the smallholders are the crux of it, and how do we accumulate all of this in order to protect them? So the short-term challenge is, again, by hoarding food doesn't help. Although many countries are telling us, even Singapore government, Philippines government, Indonesia, we have sufficient rice for the next 2.5 months to 3. But unless we're able to go back to somewhat of normality, that we can start to produce, and having a green lane for the intra-country running, and how do we move workers and etc., things will not be easing anytime soon. So as I going back is that, how do we increase the ability of farmers to achieve transportation equipment, transport equipment for harvest? As you know, rice planting is starting very soon. How do we get all the combined harvesters to move in and start harvesting, packing, and then get the workers to come in? So how do we get quality seeds and fertilizer and crop protection onto the ground? So we are relatively successful over the last couple of months, but there are still hiccups that we really need to iron out. Shortage of farm workers is due to border. This is something that we need to work on. That's why ASEAN governments is trying to sort out a collective work. So as I said, 80% of 520 smallholders are in Asia and 100 million in ASEAN alone, and average age is in the 60s. So they are very susceptible, vulnerable age. How do we get them and protect them so that they can continue to go out and farm effectively? So over to you.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much. Very great information. Now we realize, I mean, the farmer's challenge, and that is leading not just about the farmer itself, but also linking to the supply chain or the consumer demand. So all those things are linking together, and then we cannot just solve just one thing to save the farmers and keep the productivity. So now, looking at all the challenges that you have illustrated, now maybe my next question is going to be that what are the key priority for us to support the farmers to maintain their productivity and further improve their productivity under this crisis?
Thank you.
Could you share your view? Mm.
So I just want to also give you a heads up. The government is very proactive. They know the critical or how to ensure essential service for agriculture sector, how to support farmers. So I just want to give you a heads up that, these are the macro numbers the government has announced to protect farmers. From farmers as income support, they get 2,000 rupees in India, Malaysia, their food security fund, Indonesia for recovery, loans and smallholders and etc. So this is a very macro number, so I cannot drill down to what actually each farmer gets, but I just want to give you a heads up that every government is conscious that how to support farmers under this current critical system to make sure that they continue to have some liquidity and be able to start farming and be able to buy good seeds and material for them to farm and produce for the society and also for their income. So it's a very macro number, all right? So apart from that, you're seeing a lot of very important collective messaging coming through from Indonesian government and various governments across Asia in trying to make sure that all their stakeholders understand that agriculture is a green lane. There should be no restriction and mobility, including farmers, so that they can go back to farming and given the correct protection, and how do they support them to grow and get their produce out into the market and reduce all the wastage if the much possible. So collective government efforts really commendable across Asia. Globally, we're seeing a lot of support to make sure that farming continue on the ground. So I just want to go over an example of how regulatory plays a significant role. This is an example of a pest that emerged way back in 2016 in Africa, and today it has rampaged and spread across whole of Asia and has created a damaging impact on corn. And then what happens is across the region, together with FAO and many other CABI and etc., we managed to get a lot of fast-track registration for solutions to help farmers cope with the infection and therefore preventing massive crop loss across the world. So functional regulatory system, adaptive regulatory system is very crucial, including the license application, etc. And just want to share with you, this is what Philippines government do, because they know their officers has to stay at home. They'll be only at 50% working and etc. What they did was they put out a e-submission system and also blanket approval or renewal system so that people can continue to have product onto the market as they go through the process of evaluation. So you can do online submission so that your license to operate continues to be, and supporting whether it's local company and also supporting various people who are opening shops that deals with the retailers and etc. So government needs to move on to the new realm of the norm whereby everything is digital. So I think countries are trying to adopt to it, but again, a functional regulatory system, non-disruptive, will also help ensure tools and things are already in the market. So on that piece, how the farmers coping, the farmers, as I said, the government has been very collectively, they have given exemption to farmers, driving fruit production through incentive and etc. But nevertheless, we should take this opportunity to turn this crisis an opportunity. The food security or the food environment is very fragile. We need to drive home the necessity to make our smallholder as productive, protected as a role of technology. And we need to be able to have farmers from market, technology, finance, etc. If not, the lockdown will further exacerbate the situation. So on top of that, we would work a lot with the supply chain to give confidence. Even farmers have to do social distancing. The farmers have to wash their hands. Again, we don't want the farmers to be infected. So a lot of training, working with dealerships to make sure that we continue to put collective messages with the government to make sure that farmers have the proper PPE, the packers have PPE, the transportation people have PPE to mitigate and reduce its infection level. So I'm down to the last few slides. I think we still have a couple of minutes. Again, taking this opportunity to innovate and bring innovation from local scientists and R&D companies, for drones, for example, everybody's talking about drones. So as we said, there are 50,000 drones are operating in China alone. There are drones in Japan and Korea. With this high adaptation because of functional regulatory system, it has improved its efficacy, reduce farmer exposure, increase in time, reduction in cost. This is some technology that unless a functional regulatory system is there, farmers cannot be able to adopt and enjoy the benefits under the certain current situation. And digital agriculture has taken its fast track. Even countries like Bangladesh have been positive in getting digital culture on apps. Even today, if you see the disruption, everybody is buying vegetables, connecting with suppliers, buyers, all on digital pricing. You know, Manabe-san, you're talking about when to plant, when to produce, and etc. Everything's on digital. So a lot of supply demand proximity are already on ICT. So we need to further capitalize on it and then bring the other data management from productivity, soil, water, and etc. to further enhance the ability for farmers to produce. Plant breeding innovation is something that we all work on over many years, and it's something very new, and it has tremendous opportunity to bring newer varieties that could withstand climate change, such as drought, flood, as sustainable to help maintain sustainable agriculture production and food security. And this technology is very new, and it has cut short the ability of bring new variety to the market by tremendous reduction in terms of time. And this will benefit the farmers in real time very quickly. So we have seen some of the technology already deployed in the US, but nevertheless, we hope for better functional regulation. We can introduce the technology here so that the farmers could benefit from it. So this is my last slide before I get into the question and answer session. So we want to make sure that the supply and demand are maintained and meet at a timely manner so that the farmers does not suffer at the end of the day, and everybody goes in a win-win situation whereby society will have safe, secure, and affordable food. Continue to examine agriculture to include as the essential service. Then how do we provide training equipment so that farmer community can be protected, have good regulation to develop timely agriculture input, raw material, and technology to the farmers. Encourage technology in adaptation, fast track of registration in order for us to bring technology innovation solution, cross-border sharing of science-based predictable regulation to promote digital agriculture, utility of drones and plant breeding innovation, and many other technologies that are grown and developed by the country's researchers and experts. So with that, Manabe-san, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate all the insights that you gave. I have received a couple of questions from the viewers, but now it's a time to answer any questions from you. So please send your questions if you have. We have some more time to answer your questions. Thank you, Sianghee. So there's a couple of good key comments in the conclusion. So I'd like to share some of the questions. Okay, so Sianghee, you could stop sharing, then we can. Okay, so run the Q&A session now. So I have a question from India, Mr. Sashi Bemuri. So the question is, what is the likely impact of the lockdown on the coming season's cultivation and the production level? So what is the likely impact under the lockdown in the coming season's cultivation and production? So, and what is the impact will panic buying have on future food security supply? So he is questioning about the future prospect.
Yeah, so the future is now, because as you know, this is a Kharif season. Everybody will start planting very soon. So Prime Minister Modi have given a lot of green channel for agriculture for farmers to continue to go back and produce. We're seeing things are almost back. I could easily say 70 to 80% of input supply being distributed to all the provincial governments, provincial states, and etc. So this season, we hope we don't see, because the monsoon season is also on time. I just look at the monsoon data. So this season, I think India will continue to have its productivity. And Indian government has been also very good in the current lockdown in terms of increase of testing. So I don't see a significant, what they call, shock in terms of price rise. So going back to your second question, will there be a panic buying? So that is the question whereby the collective governments are now looking at telling all the country, we have sufficient food, buy what you need. And then behind the scene is for us to continue to work and support farmers so that their ability to produce is not impacted. So again, as I said, if we don't protect, if 30% of Asia, 100 million in ASEAN alone, 30% of farmers cannot get to market or cannot produce. There's 30 million farmers out, can't able to produce. So that will be a scary number. So we are all out to protect the farmers so that they can produce.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, again, the farmers' protection is really the priority for us to make sure the food. Okay, thank you very much. Here's another question from Philippines, Mr. Antonio Junior Carral. So the question is, how should perishable goods, vegetables, be handled in this COVID-19 situation? Have you seen any good practice or the challenges? You mentioned about a couple of challenges, but what is the really the situation to handle those perishable foods, vegetables?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, I give you some examples. Government are opening up their cold chain to help preserve and store the product. So that is very, very crucial because, as you know, smallholder farmers across Asia does not have the facility to do post-harvest managing critically, whether it's from cold chill to drying facilities. So I think this is a mobilization time we are seeing across many countries. I'm opening up national facilities to help farmers save. And I think this is a particular good example coming from Philippines government. Secretary Dar has been at the champion and forefront of this in driving so that they ensure farmers produce are protected and be able to go to market. So again, it's collective. It's a wake-up call for many governments, and I'm impressed to see many governments are really supporting the farmers, ranging from securing input, allowing agri farmers to have proper input on a timely manner up to the farming level, out to the marketing level. So, but a lot of things still needs to be done. There will be a lot of instances there are disruption here and there, but nevertheless, on the big picture, never have we seen so collective engagement by government to ensure food security.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now moving on to another question. Okay, so this is again from India, Raju Kebial. Are there any specific guidelines available for farmers about how they can protect themselves? I mean, this is about the farmers' safety.
Yes, thank you. Just now the graphics that you've shown is produced by CropLife Asia and our members. You can drop Manabe-san a line, and I'm more than happy to share with you the graphics. We're in the process of translating to Telugu, to Hindi, to Urdu, and etc. More than happy to share with you so that you can help us multiply on how do we protect farmers in the value chain and in the farm itself. So reach out to us, please. We will send it to you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Okay, so another question is coming in. What do you think is the most critical productivity driver for farmers to survive, I mean, produce food under this difficult time? I mean, looking at the productivity perspective, what do you think is the most key critical driver?
I think productivity has many, many components. It's not a single component that by having seeds will be resolving this. It is the whole good agriculture practice needs to be stepped up so that he can be able to manage his input, his soil, and then how to protect his plants using good IPM to further reduce his cost, and then get a GAP certification so that he can really enhance with the back-end technology buying good seeds. So seeds and genetics is the underlying property for him to be able to grow effectively, and also with good protection products using under IPM context and with good environmental maintenance will give him the value capture that he can make the fruit sell at a higher and better quality price.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question linking to the agro input here. This is the question from ROC, Srini Lamzami. Will the agro input suppliers be able to meet the demand of the farmers in the season soon after the COVID is over? I mean, are they ready? Suppliers are ready to supply the materials? If not, then how long will it take?
We are very lucky because during the period what I want to say is during the January, February, March period, China and many other countries will continue producing for the market. China didn't actually shut down. China did very well in protecting its workers to get back to operations. So we are not seeing a lot of disruption in terms of manufacturing site. Of course, there'll be here and there of what they call semi-finished products are not sufficient, ingredient not sufficient, but generally the market is able to supply for this and the coming season without any hiccup. The major constraint last couple of weeks was, are we able to bring the products from the port to the dealers and down to the farm? That was the critical part. That's why we work very closely with the government to make sure that green lane, that we can not only food can move to a consumer, but if we cannot get materials to the farmers to grow vegetables for the consumer, then it doesn't work. So the government was very supportive, understood where we came from and what we need to help stabilize the value chain. If the farmers cannot get input, we will not be able to grow, because it's 35 days for vegetables, 60 days for corn, 130 days for rice. So for the coming season, we are very much intact, and farmers will have the technology in place for them.
Okay, thank you very much. So seeds and crop protection products, fertilizer, those are available. The question is how we can deliver those materials in timely manner. Correct. So that's really the supply chain needs to work harder, or the government needs to support harder.
Correct.
Right? Okay, thank you very much. Maybe one more question. That you shared a lot of insights about what farmers are facing now and what are the way to help farmers under the current difficulties. So based on this difficult time, if we look at the future, I mean, how farmers can cope with the impact like this and turn into the new opportunity for this based on the learning from here? Yeah. How can we leverage? Yeah.
So, going back to the innovation, how do we digitize agriculture? How do we data capture for farmers so that even from drone as an example, so if I put a drone out, a farmer doesn't have to go out and spray. The drone will do it for him. That will save his time, save his cost, save his exposure, number one. So those are one technology, an easy technology if the correct regulation is being put in place for them to really deploy it. So as I said, China has been very supportive, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, and many countries are moving in. So, but we need it to be accelerated so that farmers can adopt the technology even as soon as next season to benefit from it. So the other pieces is other technology innovation from seeds, from crop protection chemistry needs to have an accelerated pathline so that farmers can have, as you know, COVID is purely a human disease, but the outside disease, the pest, the disease, climate change, there are new pests that is coming in to attack. They need new technology to cope with it before the crops are destroyed. So COVID is just a situation for humans, but beyond that, consistently, the farmers are being challenged by climate, by pests and disease, and etc. So they continue to need that pathway to produce sufficiently and effectively. And this is the chance that government can come together and accelerate the whole introduction of new technology. I give this example is why you get an iPhone 24 hours after US, and why our farmers cannot have a technology even within a month so that they can enjoy the innovation and technology.
I see. So there's a lot of technology, technical innovations are available, and some countries are advanced, some are not ready. So maybe this is really a good time that all the countries are looking at the new innovations and see that if that helps the farmer, this is really the right time to introduce and implement. So that will save the current COVID crisis, and also this will save for the future challenges ahead of farmers.
Agriculture GDP is very important for all countries, and we need to help the countries to make them ensure that economy is stable. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, so time is coming up. There are still many questions coming ahead. Unfortunately, I cannot deal with the multiple questions, but we will keep these questions in our parking lot. And then I would like to respond individually working with Dr. Tan. And probably we would include those topics in one of our future productivity talk. Okay. So, Dr. Tan, would you like to share some slides? I mean, you have some slides.
Yep. So this is a CropLife initiative that we started about 1.5 years ago, is to recognize the farmers that are at the front line of protecting society by producing sustainably and effectively to bring food affordable and with secure nutrition for everyone, including his family, his society, and the country at large. And we should give our support in return with better science-based regulations so we can help them with functional technology innovation so that he can produce for all of us from not now, but in the days ahead and the years ahead. With that, thank you, Manabe-san, for giving me the opportunity.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Tan, for your valuable insights. It was very good learning how APO, governments, industry, and value chain partners can support farmers now and for the future. Okay, so dear all, I hope this information and insights are useful to the audience, particularly those of you from the agriculture and the food sectors. So APO Productivity Talk will be held every Tuesday and Thursday, featuring world leading experts. So we will have other agriculture and food topics in the near future. So such include the supply chain, the rice focus, and other things that we can just go further down in the topics. Okay, so thank you very much for watching us, and please subscribe this APO channel and stay tuned. Again, thank you very much, Dr. Tan. Thank you very much, and thank you for all watching. Stay safe, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Thank you.